Good afternoon and welcome to Rubbing Minds. Happy 2026. Expect to hear this as we go into the first complete working week of this new year. I hope you enjoyed the festivity, the Christmas holiday and break, and you're ready for 2026. Now, today on the show, we will be discussing the factors that will shape 2026, from politics to governance to the road to the 2027 general elections, the creative economy, and of course, the big one, T for tax. My name is Isabella Adediji, and it's truly a pleasure to be back here on Rubbing Minds. Now, our first guest today is an economist, and he's joining us via Zoom. Stanley Honora, welcome to Rubbing Minds.
Good afternoon. I don't know if you can see me. Good afternoon.
Yes, I can see you. Happy 2026. Now, I can't wait for this conversation, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians are eager to learn more about the big T tax because it's been like everyone has been preparing for 2026 of tax. In fact, if you go on
Yeah.
social media, you'll find some very funny memes and screenshots of transfer notes. I beg, this 2K is just to help my brother. Taxman, don't collect any tax, so it's a gift. Like, is that what we're going into? That we have to be this descriptive and even describing what our payments are for? Does that really make a difference in the grand scheme of things when it comes to tax?
Thanks for having me and Happy New Year to everyone. One of the things that we are seeing is a case of a newness. As a person, I like the idea that people are aware of the fact that there's money now coming from them. Nigerians have been paying tax for years, but this awareness has never been there. And that is a new thing. And I'm sure to me, I just feel like it's going to make a lot more, there's going to be a lot more accountability on the side of the government because of the awareness. But for most of the people that are scared, oh, is it that once I transfer 1,000 naira, they're going to take out this money? Or once I transfer 5,000 naira, money is leaving my account because they're going to tax me 20%. That is not the truth. So there is that confusion, and that's because there's been a lot of misinformation. For the average man on the streets, which makes up about 80% of who Nigerians are, most of them do not fall within for the business owners, do not fall within the tax bracket that's DP tax. Then for personal income, that has to do with your employer, and your employer, for most people that are employed within an organization, your employer already has been paying your tax. For some of them, they will even see an increment in their salaries. And some people will have the advantage. I'm sure your employer will tell you that, oh, you can go and do National Housing Fund or one of those allowable tax deductibles that will help you see your tax being reduced. So for most people, which I would say for a lot of like 80% of Nigerians, the fear that they have is just mostly, amplified by social media. If they were to go down to what it really is, a lot of them do not need to worry. But for the vast majority of business owners that fall within the taxable bracket that have not been paying tax over the past few years, this time a lot of them now have to worry about being compliant.
Hmm. I like how you break down the different brackets and the fact that the people who are employed don't need to worry so much because their employers are already doing the hard work of filing their taxes for them. But let's look at the informal sector. So the Okada rider, the market woman who's selling, the hairdresser, how do you think this government has done in terms of communicating what exactly tax compliance means to them? People that don't necessarily have social media or haven't done the extra work of going to find out how tax affects them.
So kudos to channels and to a lot of the media houses that have been doing, their own beats on the front. But there's the radio stations that I've seen some jingles around some radio stations. But I was telling a community that I spoke to, I felt like the government would need to come down to like the level of like market unions, trade unions, Okada unions, and all those unions that they have. You need to find a way to disseminate this information to them so that there is not that worry that most of them have. Because within that bracket, a lot of them do not, within that, those unions, a lot of them do not fall within the taxable bracket. Those are the ones that some of them have like a lot of the tax exemptions that this new law holds. But do they know? No. Is the fear there? Yes. So the government needs the National Orientation Agency, the people that are handling this tax, they need to find a way to communicate to these unions that will pass the information, the right information, down to the average man.
So still a lot of work that needs to be done. And thank you for acknowledging the work that we're doing here at Channels. Now let's look at the timing of this reform. Nigerians are saying they're still bearing the weight of the rising cost of living. They are dealing with inflation and just the fact that it's just more expensive to go about your daily business. Do you think that this tax reform came at the right time for Nigerians?
I don't know if there's any, I don't know if I would say it's the right time, because on the side of the government, the the claim and the idea by the government is that they're trying to reduce the tax burden for the poorest of the poor, so you don't have to tax poverty. That's what the tax law is saying. Because if you look at the old tax law and what the new one has, so you see that for the low income earners, this tax law gives you the opportunity to have those breaks. But if you now come on the other side where a lot of people need to be compliant that have not been compliant, the government will say there is no better time for them to have come in, because if you wait till 2027, there's an election, you wait till 2028, is a year after election, say you want to wait till 2029, what are the factors that you need to consider? That is on one side. But on the side of the Nigerians, on the side of the average man like you and I, we are grappling with a lot of realities. And the reality is that the government has its own role that they have failed to play over the years. And those roles that they have failed to play over the years in terms of infrastructure, healthcare, education, and all that, those are the basic amenities that the average man needs to survive, to feel like they are in a country that cares for them. The government has failed on that side. And that is where the social contract comes. You as an individual, you have your obligation to the government. You pay your taxes. You keep the law. You don't break the law. You are your brother's keeper in terms of watching your neighborhood and contributing your own quota wherever you work to the community. So those are the sides that's your own contract. But on the side of the social contract, where the government needs to protect, build roads, build quality infrastructure, and all that, they haven't quite done that over the years. In fact, they have failed to a large extent, where Nigerians then feel like, okay, why would I be giving you money if the ones that you have, you've not done so much with it? How do I then trust you that more funds coming to you will not be fizzled out through one embezzlement scheme or the other? So that is the disconnect, and that is what we're dealing with. So timing, I don't know, but looking forward to it. I hope the government can correct that going forward.
And how confident are you that this tax reform will deliver on its promises, that it's truly progressive and that the monies will be used for better infrastructure and to develop the economy? And I'm asking this question because there has been some confusion around what the tax reform is actually all about, because there's on a lot of news on social media and even in the traditional media about what was passed and what is actually being implemented, that disconnect. So if Nigerians are already saying, look, when we pay the tax, how do we know that you're actually going to use the money for what it was meant for? Then they're also asking questions around, how do we know that what was passed is actually what is being implemented?
For the average man like you and I, there are certain information that we do not have, and that is why we rely on the people that we put there. And I'm hearing voices from, some of the representatives, the House and the Senate that are coming out to voice their own objections. That is why we have them there. That's because we are not privileged to what the records that was passed, and what we can see is what was gazetted. So it's why we have them there, and we need to hold them accountable to say If this is what you're saying that wasn't passed and there are discrepancies, you need to sort it out. But on the other side where you asked about sorry, the second question you asked, so that I don't miss
Yes,
that.
like how confident are you that when you pay your tax, when you're tax compliant, that this government will deliver on its promises of renewed hope, the infrastructure?
So this is a very, as a person, so I'm going to speak for me. And maybe there are people that are thinking like me. It's a 50-50 for me. 50-50 in the sense that I I'm going to use historical records. And that is all I'm going to base, because you use historical records, which is not a promise, because even in investing they tell you that historical records is not a promise of future returns. So you can't say that based on this happening exactly, this is how it happened last year, that this exactly will happen this year. But most times it gives you a guide. Now, why I say 50-50 is that there is a new law, and I don't know if Nigerians and the people in charge of the funds have changed. We hope that there is going to be more accountability. Like I said, hope. But on the flip side of it is that there is this awareness that we have never had since the history of Nigeria in terms of taxation. And I feel like we're having this conversation. 2 years ago, nobody was talking about taxation and how
Mm.
people pay their taxes and what they ought to pay or what they are not paying. So that has given us a lot of awareness. And with that
Mm.
awareness comes with a level of accountability that I expect that we have never had before. And
Yes.
let's not take that accountability for granted, because it can lead to unintended consequences if the
Yes.
people feel aggravated. So that's why I say it's a 50-50 thing. If we use
50-50.
historical records, when I might not be confident, but if you look at the accountability side, where Nigerians are looking at and saying, see, I'm watching you, I'm looking at what is going to happen, I feel like there will be a lot more accountability.
Yeah, everybody does have a role to play, the people receiving the taxes and the ones paying the taxes. Now, I want to bring you to an earlier question I asked. In fact, the first question I asked when we started the show, which was the description. How important is that in transactions? Do you have to describe every single transfer you are making so that the taxman doesn't come and take your money? And for the people out there that are saying, look, where do I even start from in being compliant? What advice do you have for them?
Okay, so I want to clear this whole idea about description and where it's coming from. So the tax law says that for you to, for the tax deductible, what you can deduct from your tax are expenses that you incurred while for generating income in your business. So what a lot of people are trying to do is to make sure that they have narrations that state exactly why that expense was carried out and what it was used for, so that they can use it to prove to the taxman. That is the essence of those narrations. So, but essentially, if you are using a business account for your business, you might not have the need for a lot of that. Because if I'm buying a carton of juice from you and you sell juice, and I'm buying a carton of juice and it is 4,500, and I just sent 4,500, I do not need to narrate that it's a carton of juice. I'm buying a carton of juice from you, because over when you are auditing, when you're checking your accounts, you know that for every 4,500 that comes into your account, it's for a carton of juice. But there is now that confusion because a lot of people are using their personal accounts for business. So they are trying to see how they can narrate as much as possible so that they can differentiate that. But if you have structured your business effectively, you might not need that. You might not need to go about narrating every single thing. But most importantly, your bookkeeping, your receipts are the things that you need to show the taxman. So if you're looking at it from that regard, that every receipt that I have that I've used as an expense, that I need to keep it so that I can use it to prove that, this is an expense that was carried out, then that is a factor. I'll tell a lot of people, just snap it, have a folder, keep it. When you're doing your accounts, you can reconcile. So a lot of those narrations aren't really necessary. But if you have your bookkeeping that you've been doing properly.
So when it comes to this bookkeeping and paying attention to money coming in and out of the account, where should the focus be? Should it be on what we're expensing, or should it be on what we're receiving? Because we do know that, like, you receive foreign direct inflow from, overseas, you're getting taxed on that. So where should Nigerians be placing their focus on?
So let me correct that too. So that we can so there, if you're receiving a remittance, if you are receiving money from family and friends from wherever coming into your account as a form of remittance, it's not income to you. You're not paid for. So it's like a gift, and that is not taxed. So now it's now on you, because a lot of what you're going to be doing is self-assessment. So that's where, for something like that, you can explain that it's a gift. Or somebody sends you remittances, upkeep. That's where one of those places where you see narration coming in. So it's for upkeep.
Very,
But
very important, because I
yes,
feel like a lot of the people here that are watching, some of them might be doing jobs, remote jobs, and they're getting remittances. So the onus is on them to say, okay, this is for work and this is a gift. Sadly, we're out of time, but thank you so much for your contributions and clearing the air on so many things. And it was a pleasure to have you, Stanley Honora.
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. So I hope that you've learned a thing or two when it comes to taxes. We're going on a quick break on Robbing Minds. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Robbing Minds. Earlier on, we discussed some of the factors that are going to affect us in 2026, looking at tax. Now, we move the conversation to politics and governance, our institutions, our political climate, what needs to be done to restore confidence and to ensure that both parties, the citizens and those in power, are adhering to the contract and delivering on their promises and being accountable. Joining me for this conversation is a leadership advocate in the person of Daniel Otabo. Welcome to Robbing Minds.
Thank you
and
so much.
Happy 2026.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Thank you so much.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
Now, let's dive right into the conversation. We're looking at governance, politics. This is a big one for Nigerians, especially as this is the penultimate year before the 2027 national elections. I think that's what's on everybody's minds. And you can see that with our politicians, with the way they've been defecting and, making promises. But how would you describe this political climate as we start off this new year?
I think it's very unstable. I think it's shaping, though. It's shaping. In recent times, a few days ago, one of the heavyweights just defected to the ADC, and that has been making wave on the internet, right? You can see everyone has been talking about it. So I think it's unstable, but it's taking shape. It's taking shape. Absolutely.
And what do you think needs to happen to stabilize this political climate, to restore confidence in, the mind of Nigerians? Because, I mean, look at it. This is a year before the general elections. By now, Nigerians have a lot of questions. Like, what are our options? Are we going to be guaranteed safety at the polls? Do our voices really count? Like, the thumbprints, are they going to reflect what we really feel? So what needs to be done by this government to just restore that confidence?
Well, the truth about the matter is that I don't know that this government wants to do anything to make it work. It's not obvious to me by their body language. They want to keep the status quo because that's how they can keep on being in office. But I would say something to you, that there's an alternative that is actually shaping. And everyone around the world, including Nigeria here, everyone knows that there's an alternative that is shaping. And for that reason, I would say give it some time and things will start to work. But as it concerns whether our votes count, indeed, people have, in the last elections, we had the lowest turnouts in our history. And I understand why that happened. But I would say in the coming elections, people must understand that if you stop coming out to vote, you would give them the power, you would abdicate your responsibility to them in how they run the government. So you must come out to vote. And you must come out in your numbers. Because if you come out in, ones and twos, it's easy for them to rig elections, right? But you must come out in your numbers and just be there, cast your vote, and stay for your vote to be counted. Yes.
But the person who is watching and saying, yes, this is great,
yes.
but I tried it last year,
yes. Yes.
or not last year, the last election cycle,
yes.
And my safety was compromised.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I wasn't happy with the results or with the sanctity of the process.
Yes.
What advice do you have for them?
I would say, I would ask the person the question, are you currently safe? On election day, you said you weren't safe, but are you currently safe? You must find a way to do something about your current condition. The day you give up on voting, that's the day you become a defeated person. So if you always show up during elections, always cast your vote. I mean, in the last election, there was a lady who came out, she was beaten, there was blood, and then she went back to the hospital and came back to cast her vote. That's the sort of perseverance that we need in the coming elections. Because once you are defeated before the elections, it's easy for them to rig the elections and do whatever they want to do. So don't give up. It's tough. I have been in Nigeria all my life, right? And I understand what that person might be thinking, and most Nigerians are thinking the same thing. I came out the last election, this was what happened, yada, yada, yada. I get it. But that should not deter you from coming out again, because these people in power have not given up. So why should you be the one to give up? So you can't be the one to give up. You can't.
I think Nigerians are looking to know what the options are.
Yes.
And for the longest time, the opposition has not really played their cards. We haven't seen anyone until very recently. Some power moves have been made, some declarations. I mean, you have Ikwakwanso saying that he can be vice to a Peter Obi. So, what do you make of this opposition that has been, for lack of a better word, been very quiet and has not really risen to the occasion? And then it's like the last minute. This is when it all happens. 2027 is just when we
go and
vote.
Cast our votes.
So what would you make of the strength of the opposition now?
I think it's very solid. If you look at the people that have come together in the coalition, it's a very, very solid team. Even the ruling party knows that. It's a very solid team. So they would try to discredit the team. They would try to push narratives, push propaganda, but they are very, very terrified. You could see that from how they've been tweeting left, right, and center, just trying to discredit the person of Peter Obi, who just defected to ADC, right? And that just tells you a lot, that the alternative and the coalition is shaping, and they are very solid, and they know it. So I would say to the Nigerian people, do not be troubled, right? Pay attention. If it's possible for you to join a political party, join a political party. But more importantly, get your PVC, wait and see in the coming months. You would see that there is a viable candidate that you can boldly stand behind and vote for. They shouldn't be worried. They shouldn't be worried.
But you see, with the opposition again, you say there's a strong coalition, but Nigerians are still asking who's going to get the presidential ticket of the ADC. We don't know who's going to get that.
I understand that.
And then when you look at the ruling party, they have consolidated power because just look at the number of defections.
Absolutely.
So what does that say of the opposition? That even the people in the opposition have left the opposition to join the ruling party, and you're saying that we have a strong coalition. How?
Yes. So I would say this, in our democracy, politicians are more concerned about their political party than the people, because the people are not the ones electing the government. So they give more preference, they give more power to the political parties. So for example, things are not working as they should. Maybe at the macro level, things are good, but once you bring it down to the everyday Nigerians, they are still suffering, they are hungry, they are insecure, they're being kidnapped every day, right? So the masses know that whether or not you are defecting to an APC or whatever political party you are defecting to, it doesn't change the reality on ground, right? So the masses, they are fully aware, the masses are not the ones defecting. It is those who are trying to, save their faces and try and get like sort of assurance that they will come back into power in the next elections. They're the ones defecting. The masses are very much waiting for the election. They're not defecting with the people. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed is that when you see these mobilizations happening, you realize that if you talk to people that are there, they have been paid to come to those gatherings. They have no business in those gatherings, right? So one thing I want to also say is that poverty has become a tool.
But let's look at
Yes.
poverty, for example.
Yes.
You know, poverty, cost of living,
Yes.
inflation, Nigerians have had really hard times. But
Absolutely.
do you think it's possible that 2026 will be the year of renewed hope, where this government will make the lives of Nigerians easier and we will begin to see some of those promises fulfilled? And with that, we're more than confident to support that, that change because we want to see continuity.
So, you know, I would use the tax reform as an example to answer the question. You see, the tax reform is something that would definitely work, right? But when you look at the way they've gone about it, it doesn't show confidence. It doesn't speak confidence. There's no trust in the system. You know, there's just so much controversies around a tax reform, right? In the National Assembly, someone has said this wasn't the law that we passed. You know, you would expect to say, okay, let us bring this and investigate what happened. But guess what? It was passed. They said, the president said it's still going to go on the 1st of January. So whether or not the government has good intentions is inconsequential. The way they're going about the activities they're doing, it's just not helping Nigerians to trust them.
But let's say that the tax reform is implemented. There's more money and this government spends on the people. Prices come down. We become safer and we begin to have the Nigeria of our dreams. Do you think that's enough to sway the average man and woman at the polls?
The same thing happened with subsidy. So it's one thing to tell the people that you would do something. It's another thing for you to do it. We were promised that once we take out subsidy, you know, it's going to help us improve our infrastructure, security, and all of that stuff. You are mopping up cash. But for who? It is not for the people. So it is not the case that when they get more money, will people start to feel it? That's not the case. That's a conversation that they use to caress the people. It is not true. It is not factual. Time and time again, we've been told and we've seen it happen. Subsidy has been removed, but people are still suffering. So we can only hope that the things that they say, they keep to it. But Nigerians in their critical mass and their numbers know that it is false. They know.
So there has to be alternatives.
Yes.
You can't just vote for thin air.
Yes.
So who do you think are the strong contenders? Because this is a very formidable administration.
Absolutely.
With the number of defections. And we know how governors play. They deliver their states.
Yes.
So who are the candidates that you're expecting to see in this presidential race to go against this current administration?
If in my own opinion, I would say that if the ADC truly wants to compete and win in 2027, the person that they should give the ticket to, and I want them to have internal democracy. Don't get me wrong. I don't want you to just say, just choose someone and give the person the presidential ticket, right? I want them to have an internal democracy where someone comes up and wins that primaries. And I'm hoping that person is Peter Obi. And I'll tell you why. In the last elections, Peter Obi did not have any state governor. No state governor. And he had 6 million votes, allegedly. People are saying that it could have been more, right? He had zero governor, and he had 6 million votes. Right now, without the backing of the people that are currently in ADC, if they are very serious, they will look at those numbers and say to themselves, if we can back this individual, right, with our political experience, with our knowledge, right, it is very, very possible that this person can contend with the ruling party and win. Because the people truly love Peter Obi. It is a love that is not born out of, you know, people are getting paid. People truly love this man. People are defending this man every day without getting paid. Most of the people defending the ruling parties get paid. And it's a fact. Most of them, they are either benefiting from the government or they are getting paid to defend the government. But the people that are defending this man called Peter Obi, they're not getting paid. They love the man. They believe in the man. If the ADC can see this and capitalize on it, I promise you, it's going to be something incredible in 2027.
So you just only have one name that you've put forward?
Well, I mean, for ADC, I would say a Peter Obi. There are other people that are still coming up. This is my opinion.
Okay.
There's Amechi, who is also interested in the ticket. People are saying Atiku is interested in the ticket. There's Kwankwaso who has said he doesn't mind being the vice president. So let's see. But for now, I would say Peter Obi.
What do you make of the ADC with the different defections happening? What does this say about the political ideologies of the people who have made this political party their home? Does it not give the impression of strange bedfellows where you have people from different political backgrounds all coming together to the ADC?
Yes. One of the things I would say clearly is that in Nigeria's political, ecosystem, in Nigeria's, we do not have an ideology for parties. There's no distinctive ideology. That's the reason why you would see a governor who won an election under PDP, defects to APC, comes back to PDP, goes to...
So it's just a vehicle to win elections and to contest elections.
It's just a vehicle. There's no ideology, separating, differentiating these political parties. So for ADC right now, it's a coalition. People who have been there, have been in the political space for a long time, who know the current political climate in Nigeria, and they are saying to themselves, we've messed up by bringing this government into power. We regret it. And as such, we want to correct our mistakes. So they are coming together.
So they're coming together for a purpose.
For a purpose, yes.
Now, my final question will be on structure, because everyone says to deliver the elections, you need structure.
Absolutely.
Boots on ground, you need to be visible, you need to be active, you need to protect the votes. And then, of course, you cannot conduct an election or talk about an election without talking about the role of INEC. So how confident are you that INEC will deliver, will do what it needs to do to ensure that the average Nigerian shows up at the polls? But at the same time, do you think that the ADC has the structure to deliver the votes?
So I would answer the last question and then I go back. So the ADC is building a formidable structure. I can tell you that for a fact. So if you look at their defection, when people defect and then you see the gatherings, people are actually looking forward to being a part of the ADC. Their structure is growing and is solid. It's well grounded in politics. So I would say to you that yes, ADC is building a formidable structure. I would also say that over time we would see what it's going to look like for us as a people, in terms of who is going to win the primaries, who's going to be the vice presidential candidate for the party, and what is going to be the promise to the people. Right now, it's not clear to us.
It's not even clear who is going to get this ticket.
It isn't.
We don't know.
It isn't.
I was expecting you to mention an article.
It isn't.
You only mentioned Amechi, Peter Obi, but I think the obvious one is that is Atiku going to come back again?
So,
and not to forget my question on INEC.
So INEC has a role to play in building the trust of the people. And I'm hoping that with Osun State's election coming up, that they show that they are for the people. INEC is supposed to be independent, right? I would say that when Peter Obi made the statement in Enugu, he said every pre-election matter should be sorted right now before the elections. We don't want to go to the elections and then after the election we are saying X, Y, Z, and you're saying it's pre-election matters. Right now, INEC has a responsibility to decide on whose side they want to be, the people's side or the ruling party side, like they've always been. Unfortunately, the people do not trust INEC, but they can still win the trust of the people. Like I said, Osun State elections is coming up, and I'm hoping it's an example to show the people that, hey, we are here to... And the man who is currently the chairman of INEC is a reputable gentleman. But I know for certain that reputation sometimes when you come into government just kind of like phases out. But
time will tell, and like you said, we have examples for and opportunities for INEC to prove their mettle even before the 2027 elections. And all eyes are on the opposition to see who eventually emerges as strong presidential ticket holders and contenders. Thank you very much, Daniel Otabo.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was nice.
Happy 2026 once again.
Same to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll go on a quick break on Robbie Minds. Stay with us. Welcome back to Rubbing Minds. Still on the conversation on the factors that will shape 2026. We've looked at tax, we've looked at governance and politics, and now we move to the creative economy with Dirty December that has become a global phenomenon. All eyes have been on Nigeria's creative economy, from film to television to music to art to culture, and truly the numbers have been staggering, from the cinemas down to the streaming platforms. And we're asking, in 2026, will the creative economy deliver? And to discuss this very important topic, I have with me an A&R associate, Trust Roy. Welcome to Rubbing Minds.
Thank you very much for having me.
And also I have Ella Chikezie, a filmmaker.
Thank you for having me on the show.
And thank you for honoring our invitation, and a happy 2026. So,
I am looking forward to the good, the bad, and the ugly.
well, with the shine, I'm like, are you still in Dirty December? Because are we not supposed to be in the clean January, or you're still, channeling?
Like this, so I can't complain.
Okay.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Okay.
And you look fabulous, by the way.
Thank you. So, the creative economy, I just look at that our baby that has now become this huge phenomenon that has taken the world by storm. And people are asking, like, yes, these numbers at the box office, on the streaming platforms, do they really translate into jobs? Does the creative economy have what it takes to truly change the fortunes of this country, the way we've seen in Hollywood, or the way we've seen, say, the music industry in America, for example? I'll start with you, Ella.
Well, thank you for that question. I believe that the creative economy has the power, to create sustainable jobs. In terms of skill, like we've seen a lot of in the music sector. Troy works in the music sector, so he can attest to that. We've seen Afrobeat like go global and all of that. And I think that the next stage, like, is Nollywood. Even though, yes, we've had some challenges that's kind of like kept us, we're still trying to find our feet, but I feel like compared to where we were and where we are heading, like there's hope for us to scale up and get like more sustainable work opportunities for people that work within the film value chain and the creative economy at large. Yeah.
Oh, just like Ella has rightly said, I definitely agree that the creative economy is creating jobs. And like my mentor would always say, when one artist is mildly successful, the artist creates jobs for multiple people. He has to hire a lawyer, he has to hire a manager, he or she has to hire a creative director. When you're beginning to do music videos, you have to hire more creatives to work with you. And that's for a mildly successful artist. I think of the jobs that people like Burna Boy or David or Wiz, have created by being global phenomenons, like they are now. So yes, it is creating job opportunities. I'm looking forward to seeing more things happen in film. And I mean, when you even think about it, on film sets, you have runners. There are lots of people that make that 1 hour, 30 minutes film, look like what it looks like on screen. A lot of jobs, there are lots of people working behind the scene. But we know that in 2026, more of those films, would have more people create more films. I'm more excited for the fact that, the creative economy is a little bit more decentralized. So I can sit down in the corner of my house and say, oh, I want to start an event IP today. And that means I need to hire a graphic designer to create my artwork. I need to hire DJs. So, like, 2026 will be an amazing year for the creative industry.
I hear you, and Afrobeat has taken the world by storm. But when you look back at December, we're a bit disappointed, shocked, surprised, where we're expecting sold out, and that didn't necessarily translate. And even our big stars, when they're doing their international tours, you see them coming out and canceling dates and canceling shows, and then you start to wonder, is Afrobeat beginning to lose its glimmer, its shine? Is the world moving on from Afrobeat, or is there some kind of disconnect? Because if it's really going to create all these jobs and is really that global phenomenon, then we should be doubling our dates, not cancelling.
Well, Afrobeat is doing this thing. Nigerians are just poor, unfortunately. That's the truth.
But the international audience, I mean, you have some of these stars cancelling some of their dates in the US, for example.
Well, show tickets are getting more expensive, and when you look at ticket price as opposed to experience, a lot of Afrobeat stars don't measure up. You know, so for example, I was researching ticket sales for last year, and I found out that I think Wiz's ticket sales, correct me if I'm wrong, was more expensive than even Beyonce's tour, the Renaissance tour. The tickets were more expensive, and so fans will begin to ask themselves, why am I paying this much to see a Wiz? You know, and he will not give me vocal experience. He will not give me perhaps all the theatrics, you know, that they are used to on their own side of things. I mean, obviously they will get the vibe that this is very peculiar to Nigerians and how we do our
So
things.
do you see things changing in 2026? Do you see some of those mistakes being corrected? Do you see, like, what are your projections for Afrobeats in 2026?
I think the artists are learning on the job. I mean, I just saw Ashake's Red Bull Symphony, concert, and it was amazing. Adekunle Gold just had a concert at the National Theatre in December, and it was fantastic. So these artists are learning. They are beginning to bring the international standards, you know, to Nigeria, and even beginning to produce shows that are on that level, you know, to match up to what is globally acceptable. So yes, we're expecting some more phenomenal shows in 2026.
Yeah, I think that's our crossed because,
yes.
I mean, we love to see our artists. And I'll move to you, Ella, when it comes to film. I mean, look at what's happening in Nollywood.
Yeah.
You know, crossing the 1 billion mark with behind the scenes. Funke Akindele has definitely, like, nailed the formula. And then you see other filmmakers, like you have Ovasabi Auntie with the likes of Toyin Abraham. And you're seeing, like, the cinema. Do you think that cinema will regain its dominance in 2026? Or should the whole be, like, we get stronger streaming platforms that are locally owned? Where are your projections going for this industry?
So I think that it's going to be a mix of both. Like, we have cinema gain traction, like, in terms of numbers. Of course, we know that Nollywood, like, it's one of the biggest producers of films in the world. So yes, more people are still producing. But when you look at cinema, the issues are still there. You mentioned Auntie Funke, and she's made her mark and all of that. But there are still more producers like myself, you know, still up and coming. I would like to make cinema, but at this stage of my career, do I want to really make cinema when I have, like, you know, an Auntie Funke, like, who's hacked it, you know? So I feel like yes, there will be more productions, like cinema production, but I feel like we also need locally owned, you know, streaming platform with the exit of the giants, you know? So yeah, my projection is that while we have cinemas, but I think that more and more platforms will still come out, like we're seeing that happened last year. Yeah, that's my projection.
I want you to answer very honestly the dilemma you face as a creative, as a filmmaker. On the one hand, you want to make your money back, but you also want to do work that will stand the test of time. So how do you do the math so that the math is mathing? So are you sacrificing on quality because it's going on a YouTube, and you're like, look, cinema I can't, so whatever you people get on YouTube, just help me manage them because Netflix is not giving us money. Amazon has gone.
Okay, so as a creative and someone who works in the film space, for me, I like to, whatever I like to do, I like to show up and show up, like show out, like up and out. So for me, sacrificing quality is never in the books for me. And I feel like quality can be attained, you know, regardless of funding. The way I like to approach filmmaking is from a collaborative point of view. And I've just been fortunate to, like, have collaborated with some very excellent creatives, and it's really about leveraging those networks that I have, like reaching out to them to say, hey, look, I can't pay you what Ijadi Oshiberu will pay you, but I'm starting out in the industry, and I think that if we can, you know, approach this from a collaborative point of view, like, we can still be able to find a balance between quality and, you know, the resources that are available. So that's my approach. Like with my short film In Her Shoes, I got a grant from Ford Foundation and Tricom Productions, and I was able to, like, it was a very micro grant, but when you watch this film, you could actually tell that the money that was spent, you know, is more than what, you know, we're giving. So the way I approached it was that I reached out to a friend who has done, like, some African Magic production. He has access to, like, his post-production studio. So I asked him to please, you know, come on board as an associate producer, and let's see. I didn't pay him his fee. But because he was willing to, and he knew the value I was bringing, he was willing to like meet me halfway. So that's how I would approach it.
So that collaboration over competition. I love that, and I think it's something that the entire creative ecosystem can learn from. So I'll move to you, Trust. Now let's look holistically. I know we've focused this conversation mainly on music and film, but there's still other aspects like comedy. You also have like the arts, the culture, the festivals. In your projections for 2026, which ones do you think will really do well, and which ones that haven't done so well? What needs to be done so that they too are performing at that level?
Well, in 2026, I think we're going to see more streamers. And when I mean streamers, it's not streaming on Netflix or Prime Video. There's a bunch of guys streaming on the internet via Twitch, via TikTok, via Bigo Live. Big shouts to streamers like CN and Tega. I think that those guys have spotlighted the people on the underground community, and we're going to see a lot more people streaming. I just saw videos the other day that Fina from Big Brother has already started streaming on Twitch as well. So we're going to see that aspect in the creative industry. We're going to see that more because more people are embracing it. DDG is in Nigeria now. Enzo is in Nigeria now. Some of the big, some of the big streamers just came to Nigeria to just stream and connect with our streamers. Katafe has broken the record for streaming in Nigeria, so we're going to see a lot more people try to get into the streaming industry on that side of things. I don't really know what's going to happen. I have no idea, or I have no hopes for comedy because like Nigerians are having a very hard time. So like I think that because comedy has now been decentralized into skits and there are a lot more memes on the internet, I'm not quite sure a lot of people will be willing to pay a lot of money to go and sit down and perhaps watch maybe an Alibaba show or a Baskin Mouth show. Well, they have their audience, obviously, but I don't think that the general masses will be leaning towards, going to theaters to watch comedy shows as much as they did back in the day when Oprah Williams had this thing, going on with Nights of a Thousand Life
and Ella, what do you make about the other industries like the fashion industry, arts, culture?
I mean, with arts and culture, we've seen the revival of the National Museum. So I think that's a
National
good
Theatre.
Sorry, National Theatre. Sorry. So I think that's a good start. Like with more plays, more theatre productions coming out. This December alone, I know there were so many plays, and most people were taking it to the National Theatre. So I see more productions like that coming up. With streaming too as well. We've had streamers like Kava come up. I think Ebony Life also did something. So I think for 2026 this year, we'll see more of that. And
what about fashion? In
terms of fashion, well, I don't know about.
Are you proudly wear Nigerian? Favorite Nigerian?
Absolutely. I mean, we saw Ciara at the Lagos Fashion Week. So and even when she was here, she's gone on like to show the culture that she experienced here, in how she dressed, she walked the carpet, it went viral. She's putting on what's the name of this fashion designer? She's putting on his outfits, and we can hear the Nigerian music in the background. So it's a measure of both fashion, music, everything. So it's, for me, I'm excited for 2026. We just need to stay authentic, if anything.
When I think about fashion, I mean, I like to think about fashion in a broader perspective. For me, fashion is beyond just wearing the clothes. November is Fashion Week and attend these fashion shows. What I would like to see is a revamp of our textile industry. I was at a Bano supermarket trying to buy something the other day, and I saw a small bag, and I saw cotton seeds. I was like, and I've gone to a few places in Osun State and Ibadan, and I saw cotton plants. I was like, okay, so it means cotton grows well in Nigeria. How about we now revamp our textile industry and start farming cotton for export? So just basically revamping our textile industry, because if we don't have a vibrant textile industry, the fashion we're having, a lot of designers are going to China and going to different Asian countries to buy fabrics to now create designs. So like the money is not revolving in our ecosystem at the end of the day. Where we're just doing finished products, but so we need to go from farm to finished product, and that's what I would love to see. I don't know how soon we can achieve that, but that's something I would really love to see. That way our fashion can now compete on the global stage.
And we hope that the government really focuses and hones in on the potential of, the creative economy. Thank you so much, Osroy and Ella Chikeze, for being our guest on Rubbing Minds.
Thank you.
And happy 2026 once again.
Thank you.
And this is where we wrap the show. Remember, you can follow the conversation online using the hashtag Rubbing Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. Do enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And again, happy 2026.